Hello. So in this video, we're going to be talking about my personal favorite incarnation of Mrs. Foley's baby boy. Right, folks? It's mankind. What? I'm sorry, what's that? Oh, I'm getting word from my colleagues in the studio that we're actually going to be talking about the late medieval morality play Mankind, and not Mick Foley at all. That's right. The late medieval period has just entered the impact zone, and my god, it's got a steel chair in hand. One more for the wrestling fans out there. So, the play Mankind, and I'm reading the version available in the Broadview Anthology of Medieval Drama. This is a morality play from sometime, probably composed sometime between 1465 and 1470, and as the editors of the Broadview tell us, Mankind can be reliably dated to the reign of Edward IV, 1465 to 1470, because of its mention of Edward and of the new coins issued in the period. The play was probably performed near Cambridge, as it alludes to villages in the area, and the linguistic forms preserved in the manuscript of Mankind are consistent with an East Anglian dialect. So, that's when and where it comes from. In terms of what it is, Mankind is a morality play, which means, first off, that it is an allegory.
Fine, well, it was allegorical.
Well, we won't hold that against you. That's for each man to decide for himself.
So, an allegory basically is a work of art in which the characters are particular attributes personified. So if we look down the character list for Mankind, there is only one who is not an embodied virtue or vice or sort of concept. So we have Mankind, Mercy, Titivilus, who actually is I'll talk about Titivilus in just a second. Then we have Mischief, New Guys, Nowadays, and Not. So Mankind, obviously, is our sort of central protagonist-ish. His life, his soul, is what is at stake in the play. Mercy is on the side of God. Mercy is the good character who's trying to save mankind from his basically sort of sins of the flesh. Not in the sort of cool, like going out and drinking and having sex and whatever it is, although that's a bit of it, but more in the sense of like subordinating one's spiritual needs and characteristics to the appetites of the flesh. Mischief, New Guys, Nowadays, and Not all represent these sort of tempting forces. Mischief obviously is sort of a trickster who is trying to draw mankind away from godliness, and New Guys, Nowadays, and Not, these are sort of bumbling buffoons who are nonetheless the sort of henchmen of Mischief. And Mischief is kind of the henchman of Titivilus, who's super cool, actually. So Titivilus is a demon in Christian mythology. He's a scribal demon, which I think is kind of cool, as someone who sees themselves as akin to the scribal tradition. So Titivilus recorded idle words spoken in churches and introduced errors into scribal manuscripts. He would then, when a person died, he would then sort of present these to God at the final judgment as like, hey, this person was doing some not ideal stuff. They were fucking chatting about whatever in the church when they shouldn't have been, or this scribe spelled this word wrong. Yeah. I think it's super cool. Much cooler than I just made him out to be. And so the whole thing sort of revolves around Mercy trying to get mankind to stay on the righteous path of devotion, of hard work, of sort of obeying the dictates of the church, etc., etc., and Titivilus, Mischief, and the Three Stooges trying to draw mankind off that path. So it opens with this very traditionally sort of morality play style, almost preaching. Mercy starts us out, and it's a fairly lengthy opening bit. It's about 44 lines. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's kind of interesting as a starting place. Because one of the things that's very striking, actually, about this play is that mankind knows exactly what he needs to do from minute one. Like, he is aware that new guys nowadays and not are the villains, and they are trying to draw him away, and that Mercy is the person he needs to be listening to and following. And he initially sticks to that, but then he very quickly doesn't. Titivilus is able to fairly easily draw him aside through these sort of minor inconveniences. And in fact, that's an important thing in terms of what a morality play does, because this is a secular play. This is not a biblical play in the way that, say, the York mystery plays are, or that what's sometimes called the Townley plays are. This is not the same kind of thing. This is not Bible stories. This is not put on by the church. This is something that is done secularly, but with religious undertones, very clearly central. So Mercy says here, "The very founder and beginning of our first creation among us sinful wretches, he oweth to be magnified, that for our disobedience he had none indignation to send his own Son to be torn and crucified. Our obsequious service to him should be applied, where he was Lord of all and made all things of naught, for the sinful sinner had him revived, and for his redemption set his own Son at naught. It may be said and verified, mankind was dear bought by the piteous death of Jesu, who had his remedy, he was purged of his default, that wretchedly had wrought, by his glorious passion the blessed lavatory," and that's purifier, not lavatory in the modern sense of bathroom. "O sovereigns, I beseech you your condition to rectify, and with humility and reverence to have a remotion to this blessed prince that our name doth glorify, that ye may be participable of his retribution. I have be the very mean for your restitution. Mercy is my name that mourneth for your offense," and that's cool, right? Mercy is my name. Allegory, straight out. We are directly told, my name is Mercy, I represent mercy. This is exactly what you need. So, again, this is one of the things about allegory, is it is not subtle, and it makes no attempt to be subtle. "Mercy is my name that mourneth for your offense. Divert not yourself in time of temptation, that ye may be acceptable to God at your going hence. The great mercy of God that is of most preeminence, by meditation of Our Lady that is ever abundant, to the sinful creature that will repent his negligence, I pray God at your most need that mercy be your defendant. In good works I advise you, sovereigns, to be perseverant, to purify your souls that they be not corrupt, for your ghostly enemy will make his avaunt your good conditions if he may interrupt. O ye sovereigns that sit, and ye brethren that stand right up, prick not your felicities in things transitory. Behold not the earth, but lift your eye up. See how the head the members daily do magnify. Who is the head, forsooth, I shall you certify. I mean our Saviour, that was likened to a lamb, and his saints be the members that daily he doth satisfy with the precious river that runneth from his womb. There is none such food by water nor by land, so precious, so glorious, so needful to our intent, for it hath dissolved mankind from the bitter bond of the mortal enemy, that venomous serpent, from which God preserve you all at the last judgment. For sickerly there shall be a straight examination, the corn shall be saved, the chaff shall be burnt. I beseech you heartily, have this in premeditation. So this is Mercy, right? Mercy is very preachy. Mercy is very sort of formal in his language. The way that he talks is very, not exactly scholarly, but clerical, maybe. He talks like a member of the clergy. He talks like someone who's very educated, and he imparts these lessons rooted in medieval Catholic theology. The very next thing that we get is Mischief. Mischief comes in and basically plays word games with Mercy, trying to undercut Mercy's message through equivocation, through these sort of nonsense replies, etc., etc. And we start to get this sense of a very different approach to language between Mercy, on the one hand, who again has this very sort of elevated, scholarly, correct, proper way of speaking, versus Mischief, and I'm just going to keep calling them the Three Stooges, new guys nowadays and not, who all speak in this much lower register. So Mischief is cleverer than them, than the Three Stooges, but he uses his cleverness almost for these sort of sophistic purposes, to try and twist the things that Mercy is saying so that they mean the opposite of what Mercy is conveying. New guys nowadays and not, they are more scatological. They are dumber. So I'll give you just one example of this. At one point, new guys and nowadays encourage the members of the audience to sing along in this sort of, it's a repeat after me song, right? So new guys and nowadays sing the first line and then not responds to it. And this is the song. It was written with a coal, it is written with a coal, it is written with a coal. And then not, so that's new guys and nowadays. Then not says, he that shitteth with his whole, he that shitteth with his whole. New guys and nowadays says, he that shitteth with his whole, he that shitteth with his whole. Not says, but he wipes his arse clean, but he wipe his arse clean. New guys and nowadays repeat it. Not says, on his breach it shall be seen, on his breach it shall be seen. New guys and nowadays repeat it. Hilarious stuff. And then new guys, in an insult to mankind, says, "Hey, mankind, God speed you with your spade. I shall tell you of a marriage. I would your mouth and his arse that this made were married jointly together." There's a lot of kiss my ass type insults, some of which seem to genuinely be like a you can kiss my ass, go fuck yourself type dismissal, some of which seem to be more in the vein of this is a thing that I would enjoy. So, you got all that going on. So what's striking about this play is the basic plot line, right? Because we start out with Mercy being like, God is good, do the right stuff, etc., etc. Be hardworking, be devout, be humble, whatever. Do good works. Mischief and the Three Stooges each come on, and they're basically like, "Ha ha ha! What a dumb idea you've got, Mercy." And Mercy's like, "Shut the fuck up and get out of here." Then Mankind shows up. And Mankind starts actually with this very medieval thing, introducing these ideas of the sinfulness of the flesh versus the purity of the spirit, the importance of the sort of higher life of religion versus the lower life of the body, and the need to sort of mortify the flesh, etc., etc. So this is Mankind's opening bit. I'm going to read you part of it. This is a decently long part of it. Of the earth and of the clay we have our propagation. By the providence of God thus we derivate, to whose mercy I recommend this whole congregation. I hope upon his bliss ye all be predestinate. Every man for his degree I trust shall be participate, if we will mortify our carnal condition and our voluntary desires that ever be perseveranate. Some of these words are, I think, not normal, proper words today. But to renounce them and yield us under God's provision. My name is Mankind, and it is in quotation marks. I don't know if it was in the original manuscript. I have my composition of a body and of a soul, of condition contrary, betwixt them twain is a great division. He that should be subject, now he hath the victory. This is to me a lamentable story, to see my flesh of my soul to have governance. Where the good wife is master, the goodman may be sorry. I may be both sith and sob, this is a piteous remembrance. O thou, my soul, so subtle in thy substance, there's a line missing. Alas, what was thy fortune and thy chance to be associate with my flesh, that stinking dunghill? Lady, help sovereigns, it doth my soul much ill to see the flesh prosperous and the soul trodden under foot. I shall go to yonder man and assay him I will. I trust of ghostly solace he will be my boot. And it goes over to Mercy, but basically what he's saying here is, I'm in a precarious situation because my flesh, my body, my physical existence has taken on more importance than the life of the soul. And Mercy agrees that that is a problem. A little bit after this, Mercy says, the temptation of the flesh ye must resist like a man, for there is ever a battle betwixt the soul and the body. And so this becomes the sort of central driving force of the play, right? Is Mankind is led astray from Mercy, and he is tempted into basically doing these criminal, ridiculous, immoral things. But there's a couple other things that I think are interesting here. One is the fact that we have New Guys and Nowadays as two of the villains. And Mercy brings this up later in the play, this sort of like, because this is this interesting refrain. And you sometimes, if you're like me, which most of you probably are not, you sometimes will see this meme on social media where I think it's maybe Cicero? I don't think that's right, but it's some Roman author who's like, children today have no respect, everything is decadent and vulgar and terrible. And people use this basically to point out that this sort of idea of like, kids today, they're so terrible, my generation, we were good and moral, that's always been a human conception. And Mercy makes this same kind of argument here. At one point he says, to sensual living is reprovable that is nowadays, as by the comprehense of this matter it may be specified, new guys nowadays not with their alectose ways, alluring, I don't know how to pronounce that actually, alectose, Allectuose, they have perverted mankind, my sweet son, I have well espied. Basically, one of the critiques in the medieval period, the period now often sort of popularly figured as an era of religious devotion and general sort of better morality, they're like, oh, everybody today's fucking terrible. Everybody's doing all this sort of degenerate shit and whatnot. So yeah, again, when people of an older generation, and as my generation gets older, we will start doing this too, I'm sure. When people of an older generation say, back in my day, kids were better than you all are, you can tell them to shut the fuck up, because at least back to the ancient Romans, we know that people have said that. People said it in the medieval period, etc., etc. So that's a cool thing. The other cool thing that I think is interesting about this play in particular is that mankind has a very unique moment in sort of the early middle portion of this play, which is when the villains, Mischief particularly, so Mischief is calling forth Ticivulus to help them lead mankind astray, right? In order to call Ticivulus forward, new guys nowadays and not are sent out into the crowd to collect money. Because basically the idea is that Ticivulus, who can make himself invisible, will not appear before the crowd unless they give enough money. Now, this play would almost certainly have been performed by not necessarily professional actors in the way that we think of them today, but possibly by one of the earliest sort of traveling troupes of actors who probably would have operated under sort of the patronage of a noble, in the same way that Shakespeare wrote for the Lord Chamberlain's men and then the King's men. The company changed ownership at some point, but they were technically servants of the Lord Chamberlain and then of the King after James I becomes King of England. Because of the ways that vagrancy laws worked, and I think this goes back at least into the 15th century, the 1400s, when this play was first performed, they were officially servants of somebody, but they did this, as most theater is now done, to make money, right? This was kind of their job. And they basically are passing the hat here, right? They are going out into the crowd and saying, give us money and we'll keep doing this performance. And it is a unique moment in theater history, because as far as I'm aware, this is the first sort of recorded instance of this being directly built into a play. I could be wrong about that. But I think this is the first recorded instance of that. So that's kind of cool.